Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to Strangers in Jerusalem YouTube channel. Thank you for the support. Before we get to the clip, please subscribe and like the video, and also check out my book. You can get it on Amazon. It's called A Stranger in Jerusalem, Seeing Jesus as a Jew. That the Messianic expectations did not include a suffering, dying Messiah is crucial. This is very crucial to understanding the events immediately following Jesus' death. We must remember that not all Jews held a normative set of beliefs about the Messiah's divine status, whether he was divine or mortal. Nor did all Jews uniformly expect the Messiah to accomplish a specific set of tasks. As we have seen, the various Jewish texts predating Jesus posited a wide variety of Messianic expectations and ideas about the divine status of a future Messiah. All of these expectations were exacerbated with the oppression and corruption of the ruling class. So we have all these expectations, but it's heightened when there's corruption. And so let's explain some of this. In the 2nd century BCE or BC, expectations of a king deliverer flourished for three major reasons. First, oppression from Greek overlords intensified, culminating in the desecration of the temple. And this is in 164 BC. Number two, when Jewish fighters wrested Judea and the temple away from the Greeks, this is led by a family called the Hasmoneans, they controlled the throne. Jews controlled the throne from 142 to 63 BC. So although this was a great victory for Jews, the Hasmoneans were not descendants of David. Thus, the anticipated Davidic king would not come through the Hasmonean dynasty. Number three, the high priesthood was usurped and corrupted by wealthy non-Aaronide, or what we call people who did not descend from Aaron, so non-Aaronide aristocrats. So before and during the Hasmoneans, several individuals bought their way into the office of the high priest by offering to raise taxes on the Jewish people to stay in the good graces of their Greek overlords. So you can see how this corrupted the office of high priest. The Jewish populace witnessed, because of all these reasons, they witnessed attacks on their religion and temple system from all sides, including from within. What this did is that it reduced the morale of the new autonomous Jewish state. And this worsened, and Messianic expectations intensified when the Romans, with the help of some Jews, swept in and dethroned the Hasmonean dynasty in 63. What happened is that Rome eventually appointed an illegitimate Jewish, like a half-Jew dictator, as a local ruler. And who was this? Well, this was Herod the Great. Jews did this with the approval from Rome, and Herod ruled with an iron fist. According to Josephus, Herod set up a spy network to cleanse the puppet kingdom of Hasmonean loyalists and sympathizers. Herod executed numerous people whom he suspected of opposing him. So these victims included people like his brother-in-law, the high priest. He killed his mother-in-law. He killed his second wife. He killed 3 of his sons. And he also slaughtered 300 military leaders who were loyal to the Hasmoneans or to prior administrations. The populace did not escape corruption, and the violence continued even after Herod died. On many occasions, crowds of Jewish citizens protested injustices that they thought were perpetrated on them. So here's one example. When Pontius Pilate, the Roman authority of the region from 26 to 36, we all know Pilate, he brought Caesar's effigies, images of Caesar into Jerusalem and possibly into the temple complex with the approval from the priestly class. And because of this, a Jewish multitude, nearly rioted and demanded that Pilate remove the effigies. And then he threatened them. On another occasion, priests permitted Pilate to use funds from the temple treasury to pay for an aqueduct into Jerusalem. And when the protest ensued, Pilate dispatched soldiers and threatened the crowds with swords that they would kill them. Also, we have the festival seasons. The population of Jerusalem during these festival seasons swelled dramatically, which caused the authorities a lot of angst. So on several occasions, for example, the crowds protested in opposition to Roman and Jewish authorities. The bureaucrats themselves, obviously because of this, they feared such protests and riots because what they needed to do is to keep peace in the region. Otherwise, Caesar would be infuriated with them and throw them out. Josephus actually provided a few examples of such protests during these festivals. In the early 1st century BC, a large crowd protested against the high priest at the temple during the Feast of Tabernacles. It seems that they rejected the priest because he was not a descendant of Aaron. After people in the crowd threw objects at the high priest, lots of different, they were throwing things that they had specifically for the feast. They threw them at him. Because of that, he called in the soldiers and killed 6,000 protesters. Josephus related another protest that occurred in the 1st century CE during Passover, when a Roman soldier raised his robe, exposing his backside, or according to a second account, uncovered his genitals and exhibited them, that's the precise terms that Josephus used. And he did this to the Jewish crowd. Well, obviously, during the sacred time of worship at Passover, the Jewish crowd didn't like it, and they erupted in a protest, and soldiers were brought in, and they killed no fewer than 20,000 people. Jewish pilgrims and worshipers were slaughtered. So what this tells us is that the festivals were times of volatility. Passover especially invited protests because the festival commemorated Israel's deliverance from a foreign oppressor in Egypt during the Exodus. Many Jews during Passover anticipated a similar deliverance over a foreign oppressor under the Messiah. Moses delivered the people the first time, and the Messiah would deliver the people the second time, or this time. So what we can see is that if an individual entered Jerusalem during Passover with an entourage and claimed to be the Messiah or the son of David, that individual would be in the crosshairs of, so to speak, of the soldiers. And that's precisely what happened to Jesus. So in the face of all this oppression and corruption, a more intense messianic fervor spread throughout the Jewish nation. So in the 2 centuries before the ministry of Jesus, most Jews greatly anticipated the Messiah, who would be a Davidic king and deliverer of Israel. And so what this means is that what we see in the literature is that by the time Jesus began his ministry, messianic expectations had reached a fever pitch.